Welcome to another edition of Be the Change Georgia, where we amplify the voices of the inspiring business leaders surrounding the B Corp and social impact movements across the Southeast to help you learn how to build your legacy at the intersection of people, planet, purpose, and profit. Today, there are more than 8,000 B Corps in over 80 countries and 180 different industries, unified by one common goal: transforming the global economy to benefit all people, communities, and the planet. If you want to learn how to plug into our purpose-driven business community alongside the inspiring leaders we feature on this show, check us out at blocalgeorgia.com or on Instagram or Facebook at blocalgeorgia, and we'll hope to meet you at our next event. Today you'll have the opportunity to learn from Jennifer Harrity, ESG and Sustainability Director at Sensiba and Governance Chair at B Local Bay Area. Jennifer founded Sensiba's sustainability and ESG practice and assists clients with holistic, sustainable business transformations. Distinguished for her work at the intersection of accounting and sustainability, Jennifer has been recognized by the San Francisco Business Times and Accounting Today as one of the top 100 most influential people in the industry. Jennifer and I discuss the evolving landscape of B Corp standards, and you'll hear about the importance of sustainability in business, the significance of data and metrics in driving business decisions, and the potential challenges faced by small and medium-sized enterprises in adapting to B Lab's new advanced requirements. Stay tuned to learn more about version 7 of the new B Corp standards, the benefits of being a part of the B Corp community, and why continuous improvement continues to be important for every business. Enjoy. Jennifer Harrity, welcome to Be the Change Georgia. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Nathan. Thank you for having me on. This is so much fun just to sit and chat with you and to record it for other people's entertainment. Yes.
What the audience doesn't know is this call started 24 minutes ago and we just started recording.
Exactly.
We've already solved all the world's problems, so now we just get to have a conversation.
Exactly.
So, but I am excited to talk new B Corp standards, and I don't know, it was like an interesting, not like conflict of interest, but I do B Corp consulting. But also it'd be kind of weird to interview myself about the new standards. Also, everybody knows me well enough to know that I haven't read all 1,149 pages of B Lab's new manual, so I'm hoping you have.
Yeah. It was, kind of like the Harry Potter book drop, where you stay up all night reading and spreadsheeting and digging through to find all the nuggets, but it is dense. Yeah. I think literally the first PDF was 1,130 pages long.
See, so not that long. I said 1149. So
yeah, not too far off, but yeah, it's definitely dense. And the bar has definitely been raised for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into that. But first, before we do that, let's talk about you. So I'd love to get into some of your, everybody always asks me, how'd you find the B Corp community? I'm like, this is going to take the whole podcast episode. But just kind of your personal why, your mission, how you got into the B Corp space, and kind of what you do, what Sensiba does, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, Sensiba is a B Corp accounting firm. Traditional accounting firm, been around for almost 50 years, tax, audit, consulting, and sustainability now. I started with the firm 14 years ago, a little under 14 years ago. And for the first 10 years, I was the head of marketing. And in 2017, myself and my managing partner, John, found this thing called B Corp, and thought, let's give this a try. And, what drew us was okay, there's a lot of accounting firms that say that they all walk the talk. Here's an actual audit, which being an accounting firm, we understand the value of an audit, an actual audit that we do walk the talk. And I went down that rabbit hole, got us B Corp certified, and then went to my managing partner, John, and said, hey, I think I want to do this for clients. We've seen so many benefits from becoming a B Corp, even just in the last few months. Our clients need to go through this. And he's like, yeah, 100%. Let's do this. Go start this practice, Jennifer. And I went, Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, like I've helped other people at the firm start practices, right, of stuff that was tried and true accounting work, right? B Corp, sustainability at an accounting firm hadn't really been done before. So I was kind of building the ship as we were sailing it. And so in 2018, we were certified, had the idea for the practice late 2018, started in 2019, and got a few clients. And then in 2020, really dug in, flushed out the practice to not be just B Corp, but to do dual materiality assessments and carbon footprinting and things like that. And really built out a holistic ESG sustainability practice where we take all of those non-financial ESG data metrics and pair it with the financial. Because when you pair it, it ends up being more of like a due diligence document, and it gives you a lot more data to make business decisions off of, to forecast off of. You can forecast a lot longer with all of those non-financial data points than you can with just a financial. And that's coming from an accounting firm. So, like it's financial is just like one segment, but once you start getting all of that non-financial data, your DEI metrics, and yes, I still believe in DEI, DEI metrics and health and safety and environmental and all of your social and community engagement numbers, your internal employee engagement numbers. Once you start adding that in, it just makes so much more sense on what is the right business decision, what's the wrong business decision, how it's going to impact all stakeholders. Um, and so, really working on building that practice at the firm. And in 2022, I officially handed the reins over to my marketing department, to somebody else, and fully stepped into sustainability. And that's what I've kind of been doing full time, is helping clients, as well as I'm the internal kind of CSO for the firm. But we now have a full team of about 10 people on the sustainability side. And we do, dual materiality assessments, GHG, B Corp, EcoVadis, CDP, the TCFD reporting for the California disclosures, 253261, DEI consulting, and just fractional CSO work for folks that don't have an internal person to do all their strategy, but they've got a couple really kind of passionate folks around it that just need that guidance.
Mm-hmm.
We can come in and do that. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at now. And that's how it's kind of evolved. And that's kind of how I found the B Corp community, was just wanting to showcase our firm and really get that audit that we do what we say we do. And kind of stepped in and have kind of fell in love with the community. And a lot of the stuff that was really powerful as the B Corp movement. And so much so, I'm now the chair, governance chair for B Local Bay Area here in San Francisco Bay Area.
Don't let them talk you
So,
into being the full chair.
oh no, I am the full chair.
Oh, well,
Governance
there you
chair
go.
is the chair title for us.
Oh, we
So
haven't come up
yeah,
with fancy names like that.
I'm
We're still
already I'm already
in the
full.
chair
Yeah,
of pushing it uphill in the snow both ways.
yeah.
No. Well, the funny part too is we're talking to to the average person who knows me is like, why are you putting another consulting company on? I think one of the coolest things that's coming out of this, and where this whole idea to have you on the podcast came out of, is with the new standards that are advancing the bar so fast. We have people in this community, in the consulting community specifically, that are experts at certain things more so than they are experts at it. We know enough to be dangerous in some of the areas, but like for us, we haven't done a lot of materiality assessment. I don't claim to be an environmental consultant. I can kind of get you there. I know the partners to introduce you to, but I'm more in the social impact, strategic impact, DEI space. A lot of work in Atlanta, a lot of work in the Southeast. So as we looked at these new standards, we kind of both came to the same conclusion of like, these are going to require some of us to team up with the people who have the expert skills. And then where the skills are a little bit less in one area, we're going to need to bring in a Nathan. Where the skills are a little bit less in the other, I'm going to need to bring in a Sensiba. So what are you seeing in those new standards that are like you even said, we're pushing the goal line. And I work with a lot of small and medium sized businesses, so there's some pushes, but they're not as big as you're seeing with some of the multinationals, and even some of the direction for some of the companies. Like if you're selling in Europe, and some of the things that you're seeing in the new standards.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we went from a point system in
Yeah,
5 areas, right?
don't get me started.
And so, just to revisit the 5 areas, governance, environment, community, customer, worker, right? So those 5 different areas, you had to score a minimum of 80 points over those 5 different areas. You could kind of shift and be heavier in one and lighter in the other. And, as long as you got through the full verification process and evaluation, and still maintained the 80 points, you were able to get certified. Many companies every year will, or every 3 years, because it's recertified every 3 years, will increase their points, because B Corps, once they get that score, it challenges them to get a better score every year. So kind of bummed that the scoring system is going away.
I
That's
stole
one of
my
the first
question.
changes.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
are you happy that the points are going up? Business people,
Yeah.
you love metrics, you
Well,
love
because I think
numbers.
it's
I
it's
need
a
a
healthy
number.
competition. And
We
it gives
also
people.
we don't say we hit our sales goal. We say we went 28% over our. You know what I mean? Like we
Right.
anyway.
Right. So, it's I think it's, keeping B Corps going is going to be kind of a thing. Um, you know, so now we have a either meets or doesn't meet. Like you're either hitting it or you're not.
Pass fail. It's an Ivy
And
League MBA. Pass fail.
pass fail. And the bar for meeting in these categories, and you have to meet all the categories, all the themes, is gotten the bars raised. So first off, we've got foundational requirements. So to submit, you've got your basic foundation, which is your governance, your legal entity structure, which before, when you submitted, you had like so many months to do that legal shift. Well, now you have to have that legal shift done in order to submit. And that's going to be a little different. So there's that piece. And then there's 7 themes, right? Some new stuff that's come up. They've got a full JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, where before, I think version 6, DEI was kind of sprinkled throughout, So this is a full JEDI section. And there's human rights. It's a human rights section. So a lot of folks are going to need some, if you're a smaller company, a basic human rights policy. If you're a larger company, there's going to be some more complexity to that, having objectives and targets and different things there. So there's a lot going on. Some of the new stuff for larger companies, in the purpose and stakeholder governance section, is the double materiality assessments. So that's where you're looking at stuff that is, we're like, wait, what's double? It's like, what is material? What is relevant to both your company and to your stakeholders, right? So, and it's going to be different, because, so think of it, it's like a transportation company, right? So transportation company, you're thinking, okay, I need to have electric trucks, or I need to have, things like that. Like they're looking at their operations of their business, but to their stakeholders, to the community that's around them, they're looking at noise. What are the noise of your trucks, right? Are they sitting in the driveway idling as you're loading your trucks, right? So it's like that is going to be more on the stakeholder side of what's material and relevant, because that's a risk for you, because if your neighbors all really come together and, start filing
Despise
complaints,
you.
right, they can make your life a little difficult. So, those different things, the double materiality. So we look at for that, the SASB standards, right? And they've got 77 different industries, all categorized out and what those metrics are. So doing a double materiality assessment, which is good for any company to do, to just, if you're starting off for the first time in this kind of sustainability realm, finding out what's material to your organization in your industry for your specific business is a great place to start. So highly recommend doing it, and then redoing it every 3 years, every 3 to 5 years. I think the assessment's going to require every 3 years, to do it, just to be like, okay, what's relevant now? Because stuff,
Hmm.
as we've seen, the world changes. What's material now might not be what's material in, say, 3 to 4 years, or vice versa, right? Um, so it's, you want to make sure to keep doing those. And then on Uh, where we had the environment section was one of the 5 in version 6. Now we've got climate action and circularity and environmental stuff. So it's broken out into 2 separate sections. So climate action, you're going to have to do a basic inventory. Smaller companies, they can get away with just a climate transition plan, but honestly, I can't see how you're going to have a climate transition plan without doing some sort of basic
Yes.
inventory. Like you're going to have to anyways.
You're
And
gonna have to measure.
businesses,
You can't improve what you're not measuring. So
right, right. And there's so many different things that are asking for carbon numbers now, right? Like you can't get a B Corp assessment. You can't get an EcoVadis assessment. You can't get a CDP report, right? And so if you are a CPG company and you want to get into, so if you're in the fashion world or accessories and you want to get into Nordstrom's, well, guess what? You're going to have a C or better to get into Nordstrom's on CDP. That's just the cost of doing business now. And in California, and several other states that are following, California has climate disclosures for companies that are 1 billion in revenue. And so, okay, you're like, well, I'm not 1 billion in revenue. Yeah, but are you in the supply chain of a company that is going to have to report? Because once they start digging into their scope 3, which is the supply chain scope, they're going to start asking for numbers. And you either have them or you don't. And, a lot of companies are like, well, in order to get a clear picture of our supply chain, we need to have companies that are reporting these numbers. So they're going to switch to companies that have the numbers.
yeah.
So it behooves folks to start doing this, right? So that's a change, right? That's it's table stakes now. You're gonna
Yep.
have to start doing carbon inventories annually, and having a climate transition plans. And for larger companies, there's going to be science-based target initiatives filings, right? And assurance, getting audits of your GHG data. And that's also a piece that is in the California climate disclosures. One thing I will say about the bar being raised is while it's a little uncomfortable for those of us in the US, because we haven't had to do
Yes.
this type of stuff before, European folks are like, yeah, we have that because they're doing this already, right?
Yep.
They've got the CDP, they've got the ERISA stuff, they've got all the taxonomy stuff, they've got all of this stuff that they're already doing and have been doing for a few years now. Europe and the rest of the world is so far ahead of the US right now, and we recognize we were on a good track. You know,
Mhm.
federally we had the SEC that was coming out with stuff, but that has since changed since January, with our new administration. We will not see anything federally. That's why all this work is happening state level and within the businesses. And I think that's amazing to see, states really leaning in on this. That's where the climate regulations in California and the rest of the states are kind of similarly to how some of the other stuff happens in state government. California does it first. We figure out all the wrinkles and all of
Mhm.
the, okay, this isn't going to work, and spaghetti on the wall. Once we get it all figured out, the rest of the states, okay, we're just going to copy and paste it here. It's
It's like kind
kind
of
of
like
how it happens.
Delaware with
Right?
Public Benefit Corporation, where like everybody just took Delaware's, and it's like, how
Yeah,
much of this can we fit into our Public Benefit Corporation
exactly.
legislation?
Exactly. Somebody figured it out. Everybody else copies and pastes. No, no, no shade on that. But it's like, yeah, we'll figure it out and we'll share best practices. Like, hey, let's go. So yeah, so we're gonna see stuff state. We're gonna see stuff on the business level because businesses know this makes business sense, right?
Yeah.
We had a very real time case study happen just recently with the whole DEI thing. Target, Costco, right? We've all seen those earnings reports come out for Target in the last couple of quarters, and they're not looking so hot.
Yeah.
But Costco, who came out and said DEI makes sense to our organization and we're not backing away from it, they've seen an influx in revenue, they've seen an influx in membership. So very real time, real data reaction to this stuff. It makes business sense. So,
Well, they came with the business argument too. That was the beautiful part of what they
yeah,
did too. It's like we've been. I mean, I think that's something that gets overlooked. Is like I think a lot of us in this community are like, oh my God, there's going to be so much more of a burden to do this. But in reality, I think like you said, you can't. You're going to need this if you want to do business. If you want on the shelf of a Macy's or a Nordstrom's, or you want to be in a European company's supply chain, or you're going to have to do it anyway, but you can't really start improving what you're not measuring. So even from a DEI standpoint, I don't know. I think we've always done ourselves a disservice sometimes in the B Corp community because we feel like, well, it's the right thing to do. And in reality, some of these, Costco just led with the business case. Like, here's who our employees are. Here's who our customers are. We have all this data. We're not, which Target just kind of went like, oh, everybody's mad at us on Twitter or X or whatever. And just kind of like, didn't really, they have to have the data, but I don't know if they didn't pull it or don't have it or don't have it organized, but just kind of
They
like,
do. They do. I mean, they have data on, what their customers are buying enough to be able to send them flyers specifically
boom,
targeted, right?
what,
Everybody
the
remembers
pregnancy
that
test
story.
one,
I'm sorry?
the pregnancy test one or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean they started sending flyers for baby gear to a young woman, and the father came in and started yelling at the manager saying, "How dare you send this to my teenage daughter?" And the daughter was sheepishly in the back going, yeah.
So they have the data. They
They
just didn't
have the
label it.
data.
Yeah.
They can tell what her buying, prenatal vitamins or just what she was buying at Target, and started targeting her with ads specifically for what she was buying. They've been doing it for years because I mean the story is what, over a decade old.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for years, so they should know who's buying what, and be able to make business decisions off of it. Um, and I think you're right. I think it was just a few folks trolling them, and some violence in their stores. I mean that did happen. Um, and I think they pulled back and they weren't really paying attention to their numbers, right? Um, and so that's kind of a sad thing. And for the largest employer of African American Black Americans to pull back from DEI, Walmart, that was a huge step backwards. That
Yeah.
that felt wrong in so many ways. So yeah, there's some stuff happening out there that makes being a B Corp and becoming a certified B Corp kind of a sense of resistance building, and if you are having trouble with what's going on in the US right now, maybe show up by becoming a B Corp, because it directly it's against it on the opposite side of the spectrum of what's happening in the country right now.
Is there like, I mean, I use this analogy all the time. Somebody asked me this literally yesterday, and I was telling you about somebody was like, was like talking about DEI, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's what I do for a living. They were like, oh, I'm sorry. Um, but we were talking about that, and I said, he's like, what do you think the future of this looks like? And I'm like, DEI, ESG, all the stuff that we do literally for a living and help companies do better. I was like, at the end of the day, the toothpaste is kind of out of the tube. I mean, Gen Z, like, I mean, again, not all Gen Z is, I mean, we clearly, you can read articles about who's voting for whom and whatever,
Right.
but there is an element of people want more that, we might not be at 100% yet,
Yeah,
but
no,
this generation is,
consumers are definitely driving this stuff. Absolutely. Consumers and investors. And consumers almost automatically think, "Oh, well, you're of course you're doing this, right?" And demanding, right? So the younger generations, yes, there are a few that are voting the other way, but majority of millennials and younger, right? They're all in on this sustainability train, and doing things that are good for all stakeholders. Um, that just makes sense, as much as the sky is blue. And it. I'm excited about that. That our world is shifting that way. But I think that's where businesses are seeing this is they know that it's table stakes now. It's not just ESG is the right thing to do. It's that it is real financial material risk in many ways.
and financial benefit
Yeah.
for the,
Lots of
for the,
risk, lots of
for the ones that
opportunities.
are doing it. You're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
If you're not advancing, if you're not, I mean, you're just going to become irrelevant. And I don't know. Again, it comes back to this whole thing of making the business case that I feel like as we start to see some of these things, as the business case gets made, I've said this for a long time. I teach in a business school, like the most powerful thing, and I fought back when B Lab was kind of like, we're going to call it a stakeholder driven economic system. I'm like, anywhere outside of, no offense, California or like the very coastal places that you say that, people just hear socialism. Like they stop listening when you didn't say capitalism. And I'm like, the one thing that capitalism has going for it is supply and demand curves. It's a free market. Supply and demand curves kind of dictate prices and like what businesses do, those drive decisions. So we're starting to see the demand curve. I don't think we're starting to. We're actually concretely seeing. We thought hypothetically it was shifting. And I think now with Costco and some of these things, we're getting, like you said, real-time case studies where we're seeing like that the demand curve has shifted. So like this is good for business, and companies that don't do this, it is bad for business. And so I think there's an element, and when it breaks down to some of this stuff, even a Walmart, where it's like, okay, who's our customer base? And you look at who the customer base actually is. And so you go to rural Georgia is not all monolithic. Rural Georgia is a very diverse place. So, and that's the only grocery store in town. So there's a lot of these interesting things happening where I keep saying this, let's focus on the business case and and I'm curious to get your take on this one, because I say it all the time and some people cringe. Say when companies, and I mean, I haven't worked with a lot of companies, but when I hear about a B Corp or it came up with Nespresso, they're only doing it to sell more products. And I'm like, if you're gonna, and again, part of this advancement was, there's still supply chain things that need fixed. There's still Nestle gets. I'm not here to like necessarily like adjudicate that,
Yeah.
but if a company sees this as a positive thing to do for business and goes after B Corp certification, but has to make all the improvements and do all these transparent things and metrics tracking and goal setting to get B Corp certified, is that a bad thing? If their motivator is increasing shareholder earnings, but to do that, they have to diversify their board and their executive team and like all these other things, like, do we care? Is that not what we want to do?
Yeah, there's a lot of baby with the bathwater right now in the B Corp movement, and it's sad because when you and I both started in the movement, it was very much, hey, we don't need a small amount of companies doing 100% of all the things correct. We need everybody to be walking this journey, and imperfection is fine. Come along for the ride, learn from each other. Let's all just strive for being better. And that was how I feel the movement started. And we've gotten a little lost along the way. There's been a little bit of the baby with the bathwater. And I think, yeah, there's larger corporations out there that have come in and have done certification, and yeah, there's box checkers. And I know a lot of consultants, when they get in and they start working with somebody who's a box checker, they won't work with them anymore. They'll turn away the business. I know we've turned down a couple of clients. We're like, yeah, no, you're a box checker. Nope, we're not. We're not going to help you become certified.
Well, and let's be real. It's really hard to just check the box to get you there.
Yeah,
like,
it
I need
is.
you to really do things. And I would feel very unethical if I help somebody, because then basically I'm like they're going to have to fabricate data. I'm going to have to do something to like make it look like they're doing this.
Exactly. So it's, but for companies that are getting in here and they're saying, okay, we want to do this. We know it's going to be good for our marketing, right? It's one of the benefits, right? It's going to create marketing buzz. It's going to get us, access to more stores, right? Or to the front of the line to being evaluated to get into Sprouts or Buy Right or whatever. But we're not 100% perfect across the board. Okay, who is, right? And if you're coming in and you're using this, so I think B Corp is probably one of the most robust frameworks out there, right? Like there's TCFD, there's SASB. They all lean a little differently. Like some,
but unless you're one of us, you don't know what it means. You don't know what it means anyway, though.
Right. So there's all these different frameworks out there. B Corp really does look at all the things, right? Mm-hmm. They uncover rocks. They dig deep, and I think that's what companies need, is to say, okay, it's not that we have a giving policy. It's not that just our employees have benefits. It's, do we have a whistleblower policy, not only for our employees, but do we have a whistleblower policy? And for employees to know, like for us, we have employees that go on site to clients. And if they see something at a client, what do they do? Right? If they see human rights violations at a client, what do they do? Having a policy and procedure for that, right? So, or if a business partner is working with a piece of our business and sees something, does our whistleblower policy protect them for coming and saying, hey, I've seen this in your organization, right? So having those types of things makes a company stronger. And it's important. And so, having companies go through the process of becoming a B Corp helps you look at things within your organization you haven't looked at probably since you started the company.
Or
Or,
still haven't. If you're
right,
early
or you've
stage, you still
grown,
haven't thought about
right.
it.
Or you've grown so big that it's kind of like, I equate it to like, your home buying journey in your life, right? You start at an apartment and then, hopefully maybe you get a house, right? The types of tools you keep at your apartment to do things around your apartment, very small, right? Screwdriver, piece. When you get to buy a house, you're going to have to get a drill. You're going to have to get a drill because a screwdriver just ain't going to cut it anymore. You're going to hurt your wrist, right? So you have to upgrade your tools because you're, in a much bigger space. It's going to require more complexity. Your business grows that same way. And so going back and revisiting this stuff every so often so that you can make sure that your internal sustainability kind of risk opportunity profile scales with your business, that's what investors are looking for.
Yep. Well, and I think too, there's the element too of like, and I think where our consulting community, which again is an incredibly collaborative knowledge sharing community, like you and I have an agreement to work together on things, and like I think
Mhm.
where the difference is too is now putting those outside eyes on it to also look at like, okay, what is our goal here? Because there is a way too of like not only looking at this, so like what's the right way to do it with the stakeholder feedback, materiality assessments, but now I love to talk about the ROI of doing this. Like we're going to put a plan
Mhm.
together though, where this is no longer an L on your P&L. It is an investment in the P. This
Yeah.
is an investment in the profit because we're going to talk about storytelling. We're going to talk about, we're going to design an
Mhm.
impact strategy that not only drives outcomes and makes a meaningful impact, but also that your employees love to be a part of. They love that the company does. Your community loves it. Your customers love it. And we're going to figure out what is the strategy to also now scale our good along with the business. And I think that's kind of the difference too, is using these things in the right way versus just kind of looking at it like this is some sort of a compliance activity to be in compliance to get on a store shelf or to do these things. In reality, it's like, well, kind of, but also like this should be what separates your employer brand from your competition, so you're getting the best talent. Like those are the things that I think we
Absolutely.
need to probably do a better job of bragging about in this community.
Yeah. And that's for our firm, hiring and retaining talent, the best benefit from becoming a B Corp. Absolutely. Um, for many folks that don't know, in the accounting world, there's been a 50% drop in accounting graduates since 2016. So the pool and all the boomers are retiring. So, we went from having this many accountants to having this many accountants for an economy that's built on the boomer,
Yeah.
you know, uh, monolith. And so it's we're starting to see, folks are starting to see their accounting prices go up because supply demand. There's not enough accountants to do the work anymore. And so accounting firms, it got kind of desperate there for a hot minute where it was like, okay, do you have a pulse? We'll hire you. Like there are many accounting firms that are out there like that. But it's because we're all kind of vetting for the same pool of
Hmm.
talent. And I think becoming a B Corp really helped us because we were able to pull in people who are values aligned and, recruiting on college campuses. They, a couple times a year will throw 35, 40 accounting firms all in a cafeteria. No air conditioning normally. And
Ooh.
then, it's rough. They open the doors, they let all the students come in, and all the students immediately go to the big four booths, right?
Yep.
EY, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, all
Hmm.
the big four. The rest of us schmucks are sitting there twiddling our thumbs until they're done, like 20, 30 minutes later. Well, the first time, well, after, we redid our backdrop for our recruiting booth after we became B Corp certified, we put that B Corp logo really tall, as high as we could, front and center. Students are learning about this. They're learning
Hmm.
about B Corp. They're learning about conscious capitalism in their business courses. And so when they opened the doors, students came in and dead stopped in the middle and went, wait a minute, there's a B Corp accounting firm? And suddenly we were just as busy as the big four booths.
Yep.
And other accounting firms are like, so what's this B Corp thing? what is, can you tell me more about it? And that's how we started to help other accounting firms become B Corps, because we recognize this is bigger than one firm. High tide
Yeah.
raises the boat, right?
That's
Um,
my first client was an accounting firm.
there you go. See?
I don't know if I
Um,
should say thank you or blame them. I don't know.
yeah. So it really helped us. And since then, we draw in a lot of great, the high scoring, kind of creme of the crop college students, but we also get really seasoned professionals that come to us saying, we've heard about Sensiba, we've heard about your B Corp, we've heard about the culture that you have, and our culture is very wrapped around our B Corp certification. We really drank all the
Almost
Kool-Aid
like you
there,
worked with a great consultant or something.
you know. And so, they came over, and a lot of them then start to talk to their colleagues, and then they
Yep.
come over. And so while other firms have really struggled for hiring talent, we have not.
Again, the business case. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of it.
Because I mean,
Um,
think about it, hiring and retaining talent. You're what? It's like a, a third to two-thirds of a person's salary is what you're going to have to pay to bring in and retrain a new professional. So if your
yep.
attrition rate goes down, that's better for your bottom line.
Well, I mean, we can go on and on about professional services, but also the dud of a hire. Um, when you do take anybody with a pulse, and then it takes you 6 months
Yes, no,
to catch on to the
we have
fact
more criteria now for sure.
that they're terrible and you've lost some clients. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question, going back to this, and we're hitting it all around it, but last question before I let you go is, uh, we've heard a lot of talk, a lot of chatter, small and medium sized businesses. Again, the bulk of my client list, a lot of the B Corps in my state, my region. It's a bridge too far. It's too much. The more I dig into these standards, I tell people, the less afraid I am of them. There's really nothing that I probably wouldn't recommend to a client to be doing anyway. Like even like carbon footprint and carbon, being carbon neutral. We're doing that. I haven't seen anybody in a long time that's like, I don't want to spend that money. Equity audits, like beyond just, I guess, the business case or whatever we want to say, or maybe yes to the business case. What would you say to either the small, medium-sized business that's thinking about certifying, is now on the fence, or the small, medium business that's up for recertification next December, didn't get in before the June 30th deadline? What would you say to them about either going for it or staying in the community?
Yeah, I think to both, like just opening up the standards. A lot of folks are talking about some of the more complex stuff, right? I work with large, complex entities with like
Multinationals, yeah.
multinational, right? $1 billion companies. So, and that's where you're hearing a lot of the stuff that's for the large and extra large and, companies. But the bar has been raised for all levels. Um, it's not unattainable, right? It's and especially, and this is the point, is to start now, right? Don't wait until your recertification or submission date is staring you in the face. That's going to be too late. If you start now and just tackle it a few hours each month, then you're going to be ready. You're going to be set up, and there's nothing that is too far outside of reach. It's okay. You're going to need a human rights policy, and for small and medium sized companies, that's not too extensive. You can go get a basic outline off of Chat GPT, right?
Probably right.
Just get a good starting point, right? And I think, and on that note, if you're scared and you want to know what really is for your company, take the PDF of all the new standards, put it into ChatGPT and say, I'm a manufacturer, small manufacturer, blah, 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 blah. What do I have to do? And ChatGPT will spit it back out to you. Granted, you're understanding the nuances of that. You're going to need one of us, right?
Yes.
Definitely having a
It's gonna be
consultant on
great
your
for the
side.
consulting industry. No, I'm just
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like you're going to need somebody who's going to help you be able to take this and break it into bite-sized pieces so that it's not so overwhelming, right?
Yes.
You and I, we've got the templates for all this stuff
Hmm.
already built. You just need to go in and tweak it for your organization, right? So being able to work with somebody, just a few hours a month over the next 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year, and working through this so that you can tackle this and be prepared and get processes and systems into place to be able to maintain this data collection. Because one of the other changes, which we haven't touched on yet, when you had to recertify under version 6, it was, taking the previous year's data. Recertification under the new standard is you're going to have to, once you're recertified on the new standard, on that second year you're recertifying on the new standard, you're going to have all the data from the past 3 years since your last certification.
Hmm.
So this is stuff you're going to have to keep these metrics somewhere, which means building out your ERP, building out, your different internal systems, or small companies building out spreadsheets, right? Keeping spreadsheets on all this stuff. And just to sit and track it each year so that you're not having to go back and pull data from the previous 3 years, right? I can tell you.
Or like we didn't do any of this in years 1 and 2. We only did, or year 0 and 1. We got certified and
Yeah.
we didn't think about this till
Or,
our recert.
hey, we got a new ERP this last year. We don't have access to the data in the old one, right? Or a new HRS system. We don't have access to the data in the old one. We did some data dump, but it wasn't, right? So being able to keep that from system to system, to be able to have that kind of source of truth document that you can go back to that has consistent year over year data. And then you're going to be able to consistently be able to keep up with your B Corp certification, as opposed to just every 3, I'm sure you've seen this, Nathan, where it's like after certification, you're like, okay, done. We'll see you in another 2.5 years. And nothing gets done until those like 6 months leading up to recertification. And they're like, oh crap, we have to recertify. We need to get all this stuff done. Um,
Yeah, best practice. You should be checking in like every 3 months with your data and seeing
yeah,
how you're trending. All these are KPIs. You wouldn't go a
quarterly
year
for
before
sure.
you look at your sales numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it makes sense. And then you've got that data for if you need to go and get new professional insurance for your business. Insurance companies are asking about this stuff. Surprise,
Hmm.
surprise, right? Being able to say, hey, we address our risks and opportunities in regards to our climate, in regards to our sustainability DEI data, right? That makes you less of a risk as an organization, which means your rates are going to be a little bit lower.
Yeah. See, stay with us, everybody. And honestly, I will say, as somebody who initially kind of said the sky is falling, I think, the more I get in, the more I play around. And again, the new assessment's clunky. It's completely different. The more I get into it, like that's probably the biggest headache is if you have an internal resource, they're going to look and go, "What?"
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
gotten you through a couple recertifications, but just don't let that fear factor scare you away. I honestly don't think there's anything, even on the small and medium. It looks like everything's required if you go play with the self assessment right now. Just
Yeah.
wait. And I will say from experience and years of doing this, I think, when did I start? Probably 4. I've been through 4, 5, 6. This is 7. B Lab always fixes it. If there's something that's off, they've always gotten it right. So might not move as fast as you want it to,
Yeah.
but usually they hear their stakeholders as well, and so just, yeah, stay with us.
Yeah. And there's a big note on the back end. If you do go into for those folks who are certified, who've gone in and looked at their internal back end, at those new standards that are asking, would you be able to meet these requirements, right? That is not the new assessment. That is just data collecting from B Lab on if you are going to be able to pass these areas. So the work you do in there is not going to carry over to the new BIA. So any data you upload there, that's not going in a document library. That's just,
Hmm.
so I would say if you are uploading, one of those companies that are uploading right now, make sure you've got a file somewhere with all of that as backed up, because that's not going to stay in the system. When they do update the back end so that the BIA is the new standards, it's all going to be fresh and clean. So any work you've done to upload anything,
just like just like
keep,
an Outcast song, fresh and clean.
yeah,
Yeah, to bring it back to Be Local Georgia, baby, come on now.
there you go. So yeah, it's definitely still in the process of being implemented. There's lots of great webinars out there. Those Impact Collab webinars that B Lab is putting out. A lot of consultants have really great webinars, so you can go in and learn about this stuff. Podcasts like this.
And if only you're in Georgia, if only the chair of Be Local Georgia was also a consultant, maybe you could ask him.
Right?
Just saying.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we could go for hours, but unfortunately there's a time limit. Well, there isn't a time limit, but there's some sort of limit on how long people will listen to us nerd out about standards. Jennifer and I are going to stay on for another 3 hours talking about this.
We totally could. Just
But
give us
thank
each
you.
beer and we could roll for another 4 or 5 hours for sure.
You get rants and vents. So yeah, it would be all kinds of good stuff. But thank you for coming on and spreading some of this knowledge and some of what the 1,150 pages say. But I think it was a really good conversation, and I'm just grateful. I mean, for our friendship, but then also for you coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. This has been fun.
I'd love to say I'll see you in Milwaukee next year, but hopefully I'll see you before then. I know I'll talk to you before then. So, but thank you for all you do for the community, and good luck with your build in the Bay Area.
Yes.
If you want to come to Florida, come visit our build.
Yeah, no, I do want to put a little plug out. Build Bay Area, October 21st in Oakland. Tickets are on sale now.
And Build Southeast, September 9th to the 12th. Come on down to Florida. You can hit all of these. Hit everything. Awesome, Jennifer. Well, thank you so much. And appreciate you.
Thank you, Nathan.
Well, that wraps up another edition of Be the Change Georgia. We're grateful, as always, for the opportunity to serve you with this content and grow this incredible community of purpose-driven B Corp leaders. If you haven't already, we would be grateful for you to rate the show wherever you get your podcast by simply tapping the number of stars you think it deserves and sharing it with a friend. This helps us get the word out and continue to use our collective influence as a force for good. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the help from our production team at Chat with Leaders Media. Learn how you can launch your own podcast to grow your business at chatwithleaders.com. Thanks again for listening, and now go be a leader worth following.